Hey, Laura J here for the Album22.2 monthly meeting. We have a monthly meeting at 12 o'clock each 22nd day of the month to keep it consistent. And then what we're also looking for is meetings along the way where we can get artists who are contributing songs to album 22.2 and who contributed to album 22 as well, which came to be in July of 2021, and now we'll have the second project launch on July 22nd, 2022. So there's why it's album 22.2. And now we have Tony, Eric Vasquez, aka Tony, coming in to view. How are things with you, my friend?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Awesome. Yeah. I was just kind of given a intro and I have no idea who's going to show up today, but what I thought would be super
Okay.
cool to play with is the fact that we really have an opportunity. I just realized as I was getting my coffee ready before our meeting, we have an opportunity to become like a musical ministry, non-denominational.
Mm.
It's not about the
Mm-hmm.
box that we put God into. It is literally just about coming together in common unity, community, raising our collective vibe by daring to go inside in the sacred sojourn of the soul, understanding it, and then healing the child within. What we're doing in this project and what we did in the last. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, and yeah. I mean, it'd be great to just kind of work through that. I wouldn't even know what that looks like. However, um, I mean, that's the key, right? Is that sometimes you don't even need to know what it looks like, right? And that's just going in and being open to it, and let the experience sort of unfold.
Yeah. One of the things that I can really see is the use of the ministry for assemblies instead of protests and to shift people out
Mm.
of resistance into creativity again. Because right now we've really had that taken away from us in some ways, the ability
Mm.
to create, because we've been so reactive and masked and prevented from being who we truly are, right?
Yeah, right. No, I agree. Yeah. Okay. No, I like it. I like it.
I love it. Bella, how's it going?
Hello,
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And uh, Eric Vasquez is a collaborator with Album 22 and then also Album 22.2. He's actually going to be leading a cover of Emily Sandy's Read All About It. So we're going to
Ah,
do a group cover of that song and really needs to work on that project and move forward with that, because we're really looking to get some choirs together and even just make a choir out of independent artists who contribute, either do pieces of the song in group or be able to sing individual lines, but just kind of really, showing that unity of all of us coming together and saying, read all about it. Are you familiar with the song?
no.
No? Oh my God.
Uh, I think it was a TV show when I was a kid, maybe.
Emily
That's what
Sandy?
comes up. No, read all about it. I seem to remember it as a TV show.
Amazing. Well, it would have, of course you would. That's spectacular. Bella, I'm so grateful that you've come into this world. Thank you for joining. And you're a musician as well as a biologist or neuroscientist. What did you say? I just got a broad range of experience
Yeah.
background?
Oh, those are more hobbies. Professionally, I'm an audio recording arts and sciences technician, mostly audio, but video too. And mostly done live work though, not so much studio. So mixing of bands. So I was joining more as an audio engineer. Although I have played saxophone and violin and cello when I was in grade school.
Wow, that is spectacular. Okay, well, what we're really looking to do, which we were talking about before you came into view, is actually creating a musical ministry. I think that
Oh,
we can
cool.
use album 22 plus album 22.2 to really take people on that journey, read all about it. It's like I've got the words to change a nation, yet I'm biting my tongue. Are one of the
Well, yes. I mean, they what was it? John Lennon's song "Imagine" got banned. So when it was released.
Really?
Yep. So you have to release these things carefully.
Oh my God! Wow. Yeah. Well,
They don't like it when your song can change the nation, and you've got millions and millions and millions of followers.
yeah. Well, it's Emily's song is just absolutely spectacular. And Eric, if you wanted to offer any insights or updates, if you've got any about the project, if we're feeling like it's feasible for us to get that song together for the May 30th deadline.
Yeah, it is. I would say, and Bella, nice to meet you. Really, really great that you're part of this project. Yes, Laura, I would say, as a matter of fact, an action item for me after our call is I will send you a voice memo of kind of like a rough structure of what I'm hearing, right, at a high level.
Cool.
Because her song is very, yeah, you're right. It's a very beautiful, beautifully written song. And as you know, at least the version I've heard, if there's multiple versions, I don't know about them. However, the version I've heard is it's really acoustic, right? It's just a piano and then her singing, right? And so my thought is I want to keep the spirit of that going. And so I would still have the piano main background, yet to your point, Laura, I want to then in my recording back to you is kind of give you an idea of where I hear possibly, some chorus elements versus, solo singing, top lining, and just kind of go from there. Yeah, she, the song is, like I said, it's just her and the piano. And so there's opportunity, I think, for this cover to kind of expand, on her original composition. And like, and then even towards the end, there is a definite bridge that I feel, and I know I'm probably getting a little technical. However, I was going to say there's a bridge area of the song that I feel could really have some nice climactic kind of build up to it, right? Where it could definitely be very bigger in terms of instrumentation, and then also having the multiple voices of others sing together, and then sort of end it out the way it sort of ends as well. And so I think that's what I would say I want to give you, so you kind of have an idea of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm hearing what he's saying, or I'm hearing the vision. And then the other thing I think too would just be who's going to be on it, who's going to sing. I have a few people that I've already told, hey, I have a project that I'm working on and I'd love for you to consider contributing. And so, yeah, they've said, well, yeah, just let me know. So I have a few on my side. However, if you have some on your end too, that's great. The more, maybe the more the better, maybe not. I know that when it comes to like the solo parts of this song, top lining, I'd rather not have multiple people fighting for it, and just whoever wants to, fill in and have the energy, I guess I would say, right, the energy of voice to really do the cover, justice, right? Because I think I love that you approached me about doing this cover, because the song originally is so powerful. And I think that anyone, I think obviously with talent, can do it. I just, though, if you agree with me, Laura, I think it's got to be somebody though that like feels it too, feels the song, feels the energy of it, feels the message. And then, because it's going to come out in their voice, right? They're going to sing it in a way, right, where they like really give it their all. So
essence embodied.
Yeah, essence, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. And literally, we got through during that conversation all of the lyrics on the screen. And at 11:11 was when you were saying, I don't know who's going to be in it, which is all about new beginnings. So whoever you are that was listening, that was like, ooh, this looks amazing. Yes, I do have the words to change a nation. And yes, I have been biting my tongue, but you've spent a lifetime stuck in silence, afraid you'll say something wrong. If no one ever hears it, how are we going to learn your song? This is what we have to really get into our hearts again, out of our heads into our hearts. It's the fall that terrifies us because we don't know how to think our way out of a feeling. And so to really heal the child within through the music that actually has a community where we can work through the emotions that need to move, that are coming up now, because collectively we can hold space for one another to process and transmute it, to change the pattern, to no longer need to run the same neural networks. That's part of the ministry project. It's just the concept of, what if instead of going to a protest where we are pushing against the loss of our rights and the mandates and the government, where is my energy going in that moment when I'm fighting it? It's going on fighting, it's going on the government, it's going on the mandates, it's going on the very thing that I don't want. The universe doesn't differentiate negatives. It just gives us more of what we're focused our energy on. So to focus on that which we resist, it will persist. So doing something completely different instead, read all about it.
Nice.
Bella, you wanted to say something?
I met a guitar player the past few days. She might be interested. Apparently only acoustic. Yeah, that's right. Only acoustic. Likes Joni Mitchell a lot.
Cool.
A lot.
Yeah.
We started singing Yellow Taxi in the middle of the street.
That's awesome.
It was quite a night.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell's got some nice music. Actually, I like some of her music. And yeah, no, I appreciate all contributors, Bella. I think the big thing that, I think for me with this is really, as you just said, beautifully, Laura, I think, yeah, it's the essence, right? It's whoever's going to be able to feel, attracted to this message, right? And to the song itself is going to be who's going to, really sing it really well. And the piano part of it and just the orchestration. So Laura, I have, and then that's another takeaway for me, is I actually have a few folks that do play piano really well. So I'm looking to get them to contribute in that way, right? In basically saying, okay, look, here's this cover that we'd like to create and produce, and would you be willing to contribute by lending your piano talents? And so I'll work with them on the orchestration of it that I'm going to send you, Laura, right? And then from there, once I have the musical piece ready to go, and you and I are like, yep, this is great, this sounds great, then it's a matter of just sending the singers, whoever we have, just basically the background the MP3 track to just basically sing to, and then get their vocals back and create a mixed and ready to distribute song.
So I think that the most effective way for us to actually do this could potentially be to host 3 meetings, so that we can have stage 1 with the instrumentals come in, and then stage 2 where we actually could sing the pieces live. because then we can actually create the vibe. We can do some lead up energy work. We can build the foundation. We can create the intention. We can really get everyone working together on the same page. And then whether there's any questions, there's room for the third meeting where it's making sure everyone feels safe to create the container of love that's going to lift humanity. So if you want to schedule, we can schedule those for in April, and then May 30th is the deadline for the playlist because we're launching July 22nd. So
right.
You're going to say?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that sounds perfect. Yeah, I agree. A few meetings that basically, you know, have, I guess you could say different focus. Yes, I agree. And I would say, Laura, too, if you don't mind, I definitely don't have, I guess I would say, you know, as far as the singers go, if you have some that have been willing to contribute, right, already in mind, please, yeah, let's get them in the meeting, right, and let's go ahead and meet and talk to them, because like I said, I have a couple, however, they're not necessarily 100% committed. So this opportunity is at this moment, as we record, it's wide open for anyone to come in and be a part of it. So
cool. Maybe we can have some Sunday night meetings in April, and then knock it out of the park and into the playlist. So that'll be sweet. We'll get those scheduled, and then I have some out of this project related updates that I would like to share, in that tomorrow I'm thinking at 3 p.m. if anyone is available, or we could do it at 4 p.m. I think 4 o'clock. I think 4 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. I haven't created the event just yet, but I'm going to break down bullying and basically do the presentation that I would have wanted to have done had it been appropriate, on Saturday for the first Wellington Park out by the lighthouse in Simcoe for the breaking down bullying and building community. I don't want it to be a coming out and being preached at. I don't want it to be a presentation type experience. I really want it to more so be like, hey, these are the things to look for, so you have eyes to beware of what could scare you. And so while we were talking, there was also a more sinister track that my mind kind of went down to as we get the dark and light in view at the same time when we were talking of essence. Because I was actually writing about adrenochrome and the extraction of essence from the blood, and basically it being adrenalized blood because of terror being infused into the bloodstream, and basically giving the one that takes it more of the soul's essence, because the soul leaked when it was so scared it let essence go that ultimately flowed into the one that consumed it and received life force from it. But that's not actually the case, because what we can also recognize is how that can be flipped, and we can see the reverse effect if we can actually learn to bring joy into the journey, so that we see how it starts and ends the word itself and only leaves an urn in the center, which is the ballot box. Or it's also where the body is kept after our lifetime here, which is then when we get back to the realization that we are the authors of our lives and must reassume authority over our own lives to create the identity that is going to serve us, to help us step up and do what we came here for, that only we can, uniquely us, are qualified to do what it is that is on our hearts. So I know that it kind of went into a dark space, but I also know that it's very important now more than ever, as much as ever, to actually work on ending human trafficking and to realize the different forms that that is taking. And then for us to be able to unite on the common foundation of the hues with an extra E for all hues included, and recognize that children are the essence. We are in the way, and we need to stay there. And furthermore, we need to get bigger because these corporations would consume us and turn them into patients if we're not there to guide them more responsibly, to trust their intuition, which is the artist's mind. And this is why the fourth turning is such an incredibly valuable resource to be aware of right now, so that we can see where we fit. And then we can also see how it's all cyclical, because history repeats itself when it's his story, and he already has things planned for us. And that's when then we say we're going to write our own, which is when we take the pen back and stop the pandemic. And then we actually step into the correcting of the evil and actually do what we came here to do, which is what we're doing. And why I'm so grateful that you are both here with me in this moment, and you who view us are also giving us this opportunity to say it is time for us to come together like never before. And it is time for us to say, whether it is through music or through words, or whether it is through the way that you smile at a stranger with your eyes and your mouth, because it's allowed now. And then we have to say, okay, well, who said it wasn't? And then how did they get authority over me? And how is it serving me for them to have so much authority over me? And then we get to come back to taking our power back, because we start to write our own lyrics, which is a workshop that I really want some of the contributing artists to reach out and let me know you want to help contribute to, because part of participating in this project requires you share a trade secret, for you to actually offer an insight that's going to help a blooming artist, one that is newer or younger in this space, but that could really do with the grace that you could give them by offering them insights you gained the hard way, and save them some time, energy, effort, attention, and money so that they can get on with their journey. Because the fiat currency doesn't mean much in the scheme of thing anyway, except for what we give it in terms of the value then it has or is seen to. So all of these things are shifts in consciousness, and we're going to be encountering people with our music that are in a state of cognitive dissonance because they have just come into a new level of truth that completely shook the world that they thought they knew. And they're turning to you and your music in that moment to seek solace and to call themselves back to their center. So if we are not doing our part to get ourselves centered in the moment when someone else is turning to us to look for our example of presence, presence, then our essence is not fully here in the now of the new orderly world we are creating by calling ourselves present and showing up, not having representation as something other than we are. We are it. You are it. We are it. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So I wanted to put that out there tomorrow at 4 Eastern. And we just changed our time. So I just was doing a meditation in Ireland yesterday, and I was an hour early because I thought it was 5 hour different. And apparently they don't change. Well, why do parts of the world not change and others do? And it's just like, dear God, can't we just get on board together? But no, this is the point. Divide and conquer is a war strategy. The Tower of Babel would have us babble on when it's Bella's turn. So Bella and then Eric.
Oh, I just said that it is. I was curious about how you're going about recording the album.
Individual artists, independent artists are submitting their tracks. We do have producers involved, such as Eric, and Jared has Andrew, and there are a few other producers involved that can help with fine tuning. If any artist wanted to offer a mastering workshop on how to actually do that, if that is a trade secret that you'd like to share, I'm sure you'd have a lot of people that would love you for it. So definitely let me know about that if you're interested. And yeah, basically everybody submits their own song, and then the artists or the Jared takes care of all of that, to be fair. I just said I'd host the meetings. And he wasn't able to be here today because he had a conflict with traveling as he flies. He travels between states every single week because he's a committed and devout father. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing, and yet he was in transit at this time, and so he's not here to speak into those parts of the project specifically, but what I know is that Janine Emily with Grit and Lace, she hosted the playlist, and then she's going to be adding the new songs onto this playlist once they've all been mastered and registered, and whatever else needs to happen. Eric, you know more about all of that than I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, great question, Bella. Yeah, there is no, I guess I would say like executive producer, right, for the project, other than to Laura's point, Jared is kind of like just more maybe like overseeing, like the process of music. However, no, every artist is free to, submit any composition that's, I guess, and Laura, you can help me with this, as long as it keeps within the theme of the project overall, right? So we're not necessarily taking songs that speak of like, say, death or, something like that, right? It's got to be about mental, healing or, enlightenment, something like that, right? Something positive. And so, yeah, once the genre even of the album is very multifaceted, well, at least of the original album 22, very diverse, country to some dance rhythms to sort of like a nice ballad that Laura and I collaborated very lovely with. And so, yeah, I mean, it's diverse. And then each artist, to my understanding, is responsible for like, mixing and mastering their own composition. And so,
I see. Okay.
yeah, so I don't know if like, if with 22.2, if Jared is possibly creating an opportunity for somebody to like bring all song submissions together and then master that whole compilation together, right, to make sure it sounds unison. That's a good question, Bella, and if you have possibly that to contribute, that would be amazing. Actually,
I'm not a much of a mastering engineer. I'm more of a live engineer. Do you guys have any plans on doing a live event?
We should. Honestly, Laura, that might be a manifestation right there, possibly.
Well, there's great opportunities for collaboration.
You bring them all together.
Yeah. I know that Alex Bouye is actually having a concert in May where Jared is going to have a table for album 22 and this project too, because it's just building off of each other. And then he's also actually put up billboards and taken out some radio ads for the project as well to promote it. And then because the first project and the second project are directly connected, there's a natural cross-pollination process. So we've already got 22 artists plus their teams all able to promote the album and what we're doing. The anniversaries coming up, that's why we do the monthly meetings, just keeping with the theme of the 22. So it's like, oh, it's the 22nd, we should do something album 22 related, something mental health related, something emotional health related, something that helps us see that we are holistic beings, which I break down to be whole I stick. So let us call ourselves back together. Fragments, just call them back and actually have a space where we can do that in common unity with other artists that are creators, that are lighthouses in their community, that other people don't understand, but that appreciate their weirdness because of what light and joy it brings into their life, but definitely don't know how to help the lighthouse get their spark back when there's been a really tough storm that, you know, tossed a lot of dirt, mud, and, you know, debris their way that really, you know, took the wind out of our sail. You know, we really need to just make sure that we're there for one another. So that's really part of what this project is. You know, ultimately artists are the ones that are going to heal the nations, and then we have to start actually seeing how much it matters that we know who each other are. We got to know who the players on the field are. It's just like, if I don't know who you are, you're not going to care. I remember Carolyn Mace shared a really significant story about this Native man that had been really abused and maltreated at home. And so he ran away from home with another young boy. And I forget where they were, but they were sitting on this island. They were living, you know, a homeless life, but they were free and they were just enjoying themselves and living in the lands. And he was an artist, so he was sketching different things, and then he'd seen some tanks, and it ended up that this was actually part of a military operation, and so then he ended up becoming a scout, and then he was working for an army, and then ended up going on all of these adventures, and then he ended up getting captured, and then he was tortured, and like he was, you know, nailed to a floor and made to stand for days on end just as a torture technique. And you know, the cruel things that are done to prisoners of war, right? And basically at the end of this, he was told he would never walk again, and so he would spend the rest of his life in a veterans hospital. And so he was told to go back, or he decided he wanted to go back one final time to his tribe of origin and let them know what had become of him and his fate. And when he returned, the elders held a council meeting, because community is meant to counsel and console the soul that is meant to have support and common unity of the community. And they counseled together, and then they came back and said, you need to call your soul back. So he was unable to walk because he did not have the will left to do so, because he had lost so many fragments of himself in that experience. And they threw him into a body of water where they were all around, and they were there for him. And they said, you fight, you call back your soul. And he had to go back and revisit every traumatic memory and call back his soul from each of those not now moments. And he got to the final memory, the final fragment of his soul he needed to reclaim. And it was a German soldier. It was a German soldier that would shove maggots into his mouth every day. And he hated that soldier. And he didn't want to give that soldier forgiveness, which is part of the recall of memory, is forgiving it, letting it go, to let yourself go, free from the not now that you were stuck in, and your forgiveness frees you of being stuck there. It doesn't matter what they do, whether they give you forgiveness or whether they don't accept your forgiveness, it matters not. This is a you and you thing. And basically it came to this memory, and he couldn't forgive the soldier. And then the soldier showed up as an entity, as a being. And he said there was no food around. That was the only food I could find to keep you alive. And when he finally knew why the man had tortured him to keep him alive, because it was the best he knew how to do, he found forgiveness. And he didn't go back to the veterans hospital to die, to spend his life waiting for death. He walked out and lived. And that's what we are being called to do. That's what this project is part of. So thank you for listening to the story that I heard first from Carolyn Mace. And thank you for being part of this project. Like literally, we're here calling back our own soul fragments through the opportunity of meeting one another, finding out that connecting the dots was about connecting us, for we are the sources of information that light the world up because of how it activates our heart presence to activate the antikarana, as some would call it, and others might just call the web of connection, the web of life. What the avatar demonstrates is the truth. What you find in plant ceremonies, plant medicine ceremonies, you know, if you're, but then there's a difference between being brave and then there's, being responsible with, doing something that's going to take you out of your natural state of consciousness, like being safe enough to do so and really not being scared of it, but also having reverence for it. Like reverence and fear are a very close line, but there is one side that is divine and the other that is false evidence or emotion appearing real. And we have to learn how to feel our way through the difference. And we live in a world of mental health being the way to keep us trapped in our head as to what the problem is in the heart that we don't want to go into because of how much it hurts. But music gets us there.
Yep.
So that is really much of what I have to say. Actually, Friday, if anyone is available, in addition to Wednesday, where we're going to do the Breaking Down Bullying at 4 p.m. Eastern, you're welcome to attend. Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're doing Narcissism, Not Enoughness, and the Indian Residential Schools Act in the second Mind Control Programming and Propaganda Summit. So, Bella, you were at the first one. I hope to see you there on Friday. Eric, you're invited as well. All of your friends, your daughters, please invite teenagers. This is the thing. Our teenagers need to see adults having these kind of responsible conversations. Response is able. They need to know that it's safe enough for them to come into a place where adults aren't bullying them because they don't see us bullying each other. People aren't going to show up if they don't know what to expect, right? And so it's like, I appreciate you for showing up. And I want to make sure that I don't hold us longer than what is required, but I always like to make sure that it has been enough. So is there anything else that needs to be brought into the space for March's monthly meeting for Album 22.2?
Well, I'm new here, so I don't know, but yeah, I guess I'm mostly my best position would be in a live environment if and when or if you want to bring all of the collaborators into a single space.
Yeah, I'm thinking this summer, Robin Benedict and Alan Spencer are coming back with Baby Freedom, which is a mission in itself that is a group effort that could use prayers and protection and calls and all the rest of it. So we'll keep everyone posted with Baby Freedom's journey from Mexico back to Canada, where her parents are natively from, and she was born there to not be in the fearful environment that this country has become. And so that's significant. And once they're back, he's a DJ who's actually going to do a remix of Album 22. So he's going to put together the songs from Album 22 into a few different songs so that then we've got replays that is introducing people to multiple artists. So that's just another opportunity that comes with being part of a group project that doesn't stop because we're alive, right? That's the beauty of
the group grows.
Pardon?
The group grows.
Yeah, exactly. And then you don't lose what was, like, we've got the originals. Like those 22 songs are the original songs. It's like, as a John Maxwell team member, I was one of the first 1,000, which means I'm a founding member, a founding partner in the John Maxwell team, which has like 50,000 members now. I'm one of the originals. Wow. because I said yes before it had any reputation behind it. And the same thing is true of the originals who participated in Album 22 that came due last year. So it's just like, it just grows. It continues to grow so long as we continue to grow. Because in life, if we do not grow together, we will grow apart. So with that, I will say we can end today's meeting, and I'll get the replay up onto YouTube if you want to share it with some artist friends. I think we covered some significant ground, and I hope that it has meant something to each of you, and also you who watched the replay too. So leave a comment down below to let us know. Eric?
No, I was just going to say thank you, Laura, yeah, for hosting today, and to those watching the recording, and Bella, thank you for joining and contributing. Yeah, just looking forward to continuing this work. And yeah, for those singers that are called to the cover, for sure, yeah, reach out to Laura, and we'll definitely get together.
Woo! Look forward to it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao for now. Thank you for coming, Bella.
Speak our own language.
I'm just going to record this. I apologize.
Yeah.
And Lesego is coming in as well, but it's what you're saying is very profound about the mom and baby homes and the situation. And Terry that you met 2 weeks ago that was actually a survivor that had been taken. So you were sharing her story. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically what happened in this country was we were under British rule for like years and years and years, and then we got our we fought back and we got our independence, but the north of Ireland is still under British rule. But there was an awful lot of women who helped secure Ireland's independence. Countess Markovich, and basically they did a lot. And then there was a proclamation read out by the rebels, as they were known as then, that every Irish woman and every Irish man, this is your freedom. And then once the Brits were gone and the Irish assumed power, the leaders of the country plus the Archbishop of the country, they colluded together and basically said, right, the women are no longer necessary. Do you know what I mean? We're going to put them into a my husband's coming in now, sorry. We're gonna lock these women away if they become pregnant, right? Which is the most natural thing in the world, like to have a baby.
Yeah.
And also they wanted Ireland to be this beacon of moralistic, I don't know, this place of Catholicism, and they created these homes. They had the Magdalene laundries. I don't know if you heard about them. There's another thing, like they incarcerated women basically, like in these laundries, and they were forced to work for slave labor. They weren't paid. And again, it was the church running these, and the government allowing the church to, they were just colluding with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the industrial homes, and it's been an absolute, like, it's hard to get your head around what went on in this country, you know. So Terry is one of the survivors of the mother and baby homes. And like an awful lot of times, like these people, these women who were sent there, they were like they were raped as well, and there was no guard and there was no police investigation. It was just, it's your fault. You're not married, you're having a baby, you're a sinner, you're this is the spawn of the devil. They were told that their child was spawn of the devil, and not given any medication during childbirth. A lot of the women died. Like, it's just, it's absolutely horrendous what went on. So yeah, I could stay here for hours talking about this, but like there's people who want to do something about it, you know. And
yes.
there's an awful, like, there's another girl she's a healer actually. Laura Murphy is her name. She wrote a letter when so there was a report into the Commission of Investigations into these mother and baby homes by the government. They set up this body to investigate, but it was a whitewash. Like they said, there was no evidence of forced adoption, and there was no evidence of medication being held back during childbirth, which, you know, it was a whitewash basically. They were just covering their arses. So Laura Murphy wrote a letter and it went viral, and she talks about how like when this report came out, the prime minister of the country, he said it was a time on society's fault, and this, she was like, no, hang on a second, it wasn't society's fault, it was the government's fault, and it was the church's fault, the way it treated women. So she wrote this letter that it went viral, and she talks about how the powers that be, like when we got our independence, the De Valera was the name of the prime minister then. He's known as the Taoiseach. It's the Irish for prime minister. Him plus Archbishop McQuaid, they rode on the coattails of these Irish women who fought for independence. And then as soon as we got independence, they were like, no, women are not allowed, you know, have a say in anything basically. And when I was up in Belfast there a couple of weeks ago, there's this guy after writing a book called Stolen Faith. I don't know if you saw it on my Facebook.
I saw your post, yes.
Yeah, so he talks about his story is really good actually. He's talking about going to Boston with that book because it links in with the Boston clergy child abuse scandal. And we were up in Belfast, and he said that the De Valera, which was the prime minister when we got our independence, described the women of the time as unmanageable revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that could actually get a woman locked up in the mental health system?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised. And then they, like, if you know, they sent them off to these laundries, and it was horrendous the way women were treated in this country. So
did you know that the reason a woman or man is able to be treated as less than what we deserve is because the law does not apply to man or woman. Legislation applies to persons. Right. So when women fought for the right to vote, to become a person, they were actually fighting for a public status that dropped their standing, that they didn't know that they actually had all the same powers as what a man did before a title was created or a status was seemingly created to make them be equal, when they actually were more equal before the status was created, because they stood shoulder to shoulder, maybe his higher or hers, but ultimately you're on common ground in common law when you're a man or a woman. But when you become a person, you become a status, which is you only status, you don't stand. And that's the difference. That's why in the court you have to take the stand.
Okay.
Because you have no standing. You have no legs to stand on when you status. So this is why our personages are like the public interface that make us in their jurisdiction or their territory, which means their rules can apply to us.
Right.
Because we have a term that we have taken on, which is like the suit that we wear, that is then their uniform, which means that we have to conform for their uni. Not university, but to actually become one of the unit or a unit within the whole. So it's just like there's so much that this is possible only when they gain jurisdiction over us. Like when the baby is registered, it's different from being recorded. Recorded means that there is a record of the birth. When you are registered, you actually transfer ownership from the one who is the mother and keeper of the baby to then being the one that is assumed to be surety for it, which means liable for the penalties applied to it. but the church itself or the government itself is the one that actually now have rights to the baby, which is why children's services are able to get involved in a case where they deem a parent to be unfit.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it's able to be possible, because man and woman has forgot who we are, and that's part of the transhumanism agenda as well. Hello, Cam. Thank you so much for joining in, and I know you've been here, and I hope your lunch was good.
Thanks. Yeah, just a bowl of Raisin Bran. Need my fiber. How you guys doing?
We're super good. And the funny thing is that the meeting was actually an hour ago, but Annette messaged and said that she had been trying to get in, and Lisego had messaged as well. And so then when you jumped in too, it's just like, oh, I guess it's just part 2 of the meeting that was meant to happen now. So I'm glad that I turned the Zoom back in, and haven't had the pleasure to connect yet, Cam, but would love to hear more about you, and maybe Annette, you could give an introduction, and Lisego, if your video or your mic work after Annette as well, then we can try that out. But Cam, if you'd be willing.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name's Cam. I been looking into the stuff you guys are talking about for a long time, particularly, you know, the legal and lawful aspects of it. Come to find that there's a lot of snakes in the grass that are controlled opposition, that are posing as friendlies to misguide people, things like that, often selling things. A lot of what you're saying is very on point. And you see in the chat, I was commenting that what you're talking about, I believe, is called human husbandry, right? This is kind of the notion that men and women can be treated as animals or beasts, right? Like the word human is a reference to a monster. A monster cannot inherit property, has no inherent rights, things like that. It's the hue of a man, right? The gradient, the shadow, the shade of a man, an aspect, but not the whole man, right? What I've come to find is it's all hidden in the language, right? Like this is all a big word game. Yes. And if you don't speak the language, you lose the game, basically. And essentially what it all gets at is that, you know, we need to be in control of our persons, not have them controlled by, you know, actors or state agencies and things like that. It's a vessel, and you're supposed to be the admiral of that ship, right? And that vessel sails in the sea of commerce, and everything that they do is in a commercial jurisdiction with regard to how they control you through your status, things like that. So understanding that there are jurisdictions, that's what law is an acronym for, right? Land, air, and water. Land being common law, air being ecclesiastical or trust law, and water being admiralty, maritime. Knowing where you stand with regard to those jurisdictions seems to be one of the most critical things. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Dean Clifford, but if you're not, I would definitely recommend checking out, especially his most recent work. You can find it on Odyssey. I think his name on there is Wolver Dean. He's brought a lot of things to light that I think have rectified a lot of my own confusions recently, especially with regard to common law, in that there's a lot to be said about common law, but there's a lot of faults in common law as well. And that, you know, his main idea here is that really the crux of it all is understanding exactly how contracting works, contract law, everything like that, because everything that happens in these admiralty jurisdictions is based in contract law. And so if you know how contract law works, then you can stand your ground despite whatever the context may be, because everything's an offer. Even if it sounds like it's mandatory, it's still an offer. And all contracts, all offers to contract can be negotiated, can be declined, or can be accepted. And so when you know how to recognize when somebody is offering to contract with you, and you know how to discuss the terms of your contract, you basically assert that you're going to need payment up front in order to do any sort of business, and a liability waiver from those asking to contract with you, especially state agents. it all starts to make a lot more sense, I think, in that it's where your control lies, right? But you have to stand firm on what you're saying and what you're doing. Now, I can't speak to it the way he does, so that's why I highly recommend, checking out his material. I've watched that guy for about 15 years, and he's been through everything somebody could possibly go through with regard to that sort of stuff. So, he's learned the hard way in many cases about how this all works. And, for me personally, my eyes started to open about around 2004-ish when I did a tour in Iraq with the Army, and started realizing that everything that we were told didn't necessarily line up with what was really happening, right? Because I got to see that firsthand. Talking to the people back home while I was over in Iraq, I realized, like, the media is doing nothing but lying to the people. And when you start to, Dean Clifford, when you start to evaluate like the laws around the dissemination of the news and stuff like that, you come to find that there's nothing that requires them to tell you the truth, and there's no incentive for them to tell you the truth. In fact, they have every incentive to lie about everything they say. So, keeping a healthy air of skepticism about everything, I think, is critical. And probably one of the most important things I could say in that regard is to not be definitive, right? In terms of, say, belief or disbelief, which are identical in type, different degree. They're polar opposite extremes, right? And that both are definitive dispositions of not knowing something that often are followed up by assertions that you do know what you're talking about, belief and disbelief, right? And so the neutral point between those is consideration. That's where you can be objective and neutral. So, I think it's important that we consider everything that everybody's saying on every side of every issue, but not be definitive about a disposition with regard to it until we've actually applied what we know and come to understand it. Being the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, or as Mark Passio would put it, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, right? Where we can be full of false knowledge, right? Our grammar can be completely incorrect. And if our grammar is incorrect, it will inform our logic in the same incorrect manner that it is misinformed. And in turn, that spills out through our rhetoric and further confuses others. So I don't know what else to say just yet, but hopefully that's a sufficient introduction.
Spectacular. And I love that this was meant to be a music experience and has turned into something so much different, but also actually was what I touched on in the first meeting around ending human trafficking. So it ties in because it's the human that is the status that ultimately has us become less than we actually are as man and woman. That's aligned to the transhumanism agenda that has us be converted into something other than we are in order to not know who we are and whose we are, so that we can stand firm shoulder to shoulder, regardless of what we say energy is supposed to be called as the source. Like, what if we just said, like, energy cannot be created nor destroyed in a universe of energy. Universe, one song. In the song where everything is vibration, if everything is energy, then naturally God is everything, which means that the only thing it isn't is the word itself. But even that it's infused into. If we just start to see, it doesn't matter what word we put God into or whatever the creator's name is, the name matters less than the action we take based on who we know ourselves to be. It's the I am principle that each of us are exercising in our own way. And this is just all to say, I'm so excited to be able to create with people like you, who I feel schooled by, not in a way that is like less than in any way, but it's just like, whoa, like I just got some insight that resonated as truth for me from both of you. And if I'd have done what my intuition said to do, I would have turned the video on sooner so you could have heard the rest of what Annette was saying about Terry's story and the experience of one who was trafficked, had their child stolen.
Yeah.
And life lost in an instant.
One of thousands. She's one of thousands. And like, there's something like, this is, they say was 9,000 babies died in Ireland in these mother and baby homes. But a lot of them were trafficked to the US. You know, birth certs were falsified, and there's people trying to search for their siblings. There's another lady who I've been connecting with and doing a few she was at the book launch, and she suspects. So just to give you a quick rundown, Cam, back in 2012, I think it was, there was a mass grave discovered in the west of Ireland, and it was suspected that there were 796 babies, like young children, in this pit, and it was on the grounds of a former mother and baby home, which was an institution set up by the Catholic Church and the government in this country to send women who were fallen, as they called it, who became pregnant before they were married, and they were sent to these institutions. And it's estimated that there was 9,000 babies died, but a lot of them were trafficked. So there's people like Anna, who I'm doing different things with, like raising awareness. She suspects that her two brothers are in this pit, and it's trying to find information. And the really, like, the pit wasn't even just a grave, it was a disused septic tank that they put these bodies into. Like, it's horror upon horror. And this was run by nuns, like, who are supposed to be caring people. And so there's been lots of different books written on this subject, and I wrote a song. I felt compelled to go and do something as a mother, and as like somebody, like I lost my mother overnight when I was 17, very suddenly. So I can relate to the trauma of losing somebody overnight, and I can also relate to having a child before you were married, because I had my two children before I was married. So I can relate to it on both levels, as the mother and as the child. And I just feel sick and horrified and appalled that this went on in my country. Like, the Irish are supposed to be known as the friendly and the kind and the neutral country, but this doesn't fit. And I think there was like 14 of these mother and baby homes all over the country, and it was just, you were sent away. So just say your sister or your girlfriend, or somebody in your family found themselves pregnant and they weren't married. The parish priest would arrange for the woman to be sent to one of these homes. She'd have the baby, and then the baby would be forcibly taken off her and trafficked. Or if it died, a lot of the babies died of malnutrition because they weren't looked after properly. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I wrote this song, and the chorus is "Fly away from the dark." And the dark could mean a number of things. It could mean the pit, it could mean dark force. But then I try to offer a bit of hope in the song as well, saying, until I see you again, and on whatever that is, if on the other side or in another realm. Or so I try to offer a bit of hope as well. So that's my idea behind it, was to raise awareness, and also I just felt compelled to do something, because it's it's shocking. So I have a
responsibility to do, or say at least something.
Yeah, and I suppose where I'm stuck as well, because I was kind of thinking the ordinary people of Ireland like me, or you know, the ordinary Joe. So I'm sure they would like to do something to help, but what can they do? So I wanted people to download the song, and I have it set up that every time somebody downloads it, the proceeds, the funds go into a charity. It doesn't go near my account. Like, it's nothing to do with me. It's not about, like, it's not my song as such. I don't look at it as my song. I look at it as their song, or a tool to raise awareness, whatever you want to call it. And the charity is empowering people in care, and they've agreed, you know, to have everything go through them. But it's getting that message out, you know, to people, and kind of saying, well, look, if enough people download it, it'll get into the charts, it'll be on the playlists and DJs, it'll be broadcast into every kitchen in the country. That's the idea behind it. But it's, I think, like the national broadcaster, they don't want to touch it because it's too controversial, and it's run by the state, and so they're just like, they don't even respond to emails. Or I dropped in like 20 CDs into like the head office of, I don't know what is the equivalent over where you are, but this is like the national broadcaster that we pay our television license for, and not even one response saying thank you for the CD, but we're not interested. Not one.
Tell Lie Vision, and you're surprised. They don't want you to break the spell of fear that so many are under.
Yeah.
And if I may, I think a big part of that spell is like what I was saying about grammar, right? It's a confusion around words that lead to a tendency to fall for logical fallacies. Right? People don't seem to have the capacity anymore to recognize, much less call out logical fallacies when they see them. And if you look at every single problem, including what you just described about how, you know, these priests go about justifying doing what they're doing, all of it, without exception, is based in logic or fallacy. Right? And again, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric. Right? So when you get to that logic stage, that's the understanding phase, right? That's when you apply what you know to find the truth of the matter. But people don't apply what they know. They appeal to authorities. They appeal to emotions. They appeal to purity. They appeal to bandwagons or popularity, right? These are all fallacies. These do not get at the truth of the matter, even if they seem to do so. And they cannot get at the truth of the matter, despite how well they may seem to do so. So I actually made a series of videos on logical fallacies on an application called Clapper. I don't really recommend the application, but you can still watch them online with the links, and I can provide those. But I think if we were to educate ourselves on logical fallacies first and foremost, that would help rectify preeminently the confusions that, you know, compel people to act in ways that are not conducive to serving themselves or others in any positive manner, right? So, you know, that starts with the correction of the grammar, though. And when you look at kind of how, especially English, is used not just in, say, law, religion, and medicine with a Latin etymology, but also colloquially throughout the populace with a French and Germanic etymology, where Latin is a phonetic language and French and Germanic are not, you can kind of see where the double speak emerges. And it kind of helps to decipher what's really being said by actors who say things. Kind of getting into the weeds here, but I just kind of wanted to stress on the point of understanding and recognizing and calling out logical fallacies, because in all my observations, that's where everything starts, with the perversion of language.
Yeah, aboriginal is no longer original. Alternative, right. No longer native.
Indigenous, right? All these antithetical terms that we've been culturally trained to use in place of the real meaning. I mean, look at how often people use the word literally to mean figuratively, right? This is a profuse and widespread perversion of language, and you know, the perversion of our grammar and diction perverts this, you know, the way we process logic through our observations of the world. You can imagine that you were always taught that the plus operator and the minus operator both mean sum, right? Well, every time you see the equation 2 minus 2, you're going to arrive at the answer of 4, and you're not going to understand why other people are telling you it's 0 until you correct that language, until you understand the proper grammar, right, that is being used in that context. And context is always important, but context is one of the first things that gets perverted through doublespeak or, you know, logical fallacy, things like that. So having a firm grasp on these grammatical principles, this principle, you know, that which is primary, that which comes first, is the mechanics of how things unfold into substance, this world we call reality that has these rigid rule sets, right? There's rigidity here, there's rules here. You can't have rules without order. Order is illustrative of intelligence. And a maximum law is a reflection of one of these principles, that is, the creator controls the created. Right? Well, we didn't create ourselves, and we didn't create this world. We don't own any of it, right? We can control it, we can possess it, we can be stewards for it or of it, but it's not ours, and it's not theirs, and it's not anybody else's, right? However, when you get it into these artificial artifacts that are created by actors and agents and things like that, entities, corporations, organizations, things like your person, for instance, you didn't create your person. So it's not yours, and you don't get to do anything to it. You can't legally destroy it or change it or alter it or anything like that. You can control it, though, in the context that you want to control it. Right? You can use it when you want to use it and how you want to use it, but it's not yours to destroy. It's not yours to alter. It's not yours to abolish, right? So really, at the root of it, it seems like, you know, the key to this is finding a way to be recognized as being separate from this artifact. We're not one and the same. They didn't create me, but they created the artifact. Well, you can't say that you control me. You can say you control the artifact, right? And that's when we get into things like representation and things like that, right? To be presented again as what? I'm right here. Why do I need to be presented again?
Because you need to be seen to be the account that your Zoom account presents you to be in the artificial reality we're connecting through, compared to you, the man that's in the room where you have zoomed in from. So it's all a reflection of the realistic evidence appearing legit in tomorrow's yesterday that today's reality really is. And then where are we putting our energy, and how is it serving us, or how is that undermining us? And then to say that in life we are either reactive or creative, and it's the same letters in Scrabble. So when you get yourself into a room like this, where you have higher level thinkers in your midst, naturally, you're going to get sharper, because you're going to hear things that you haven't before. And when we cough and we clear and we do stuff because our throat chakra is activated and it triggers the activations in others, we support each other through that process, which is why we come together in common unity. And we let our music, which is wordless, which is where we drop the walls on the forms to actually stand on a platform where we can actually see one another and say, you're not the enemy. I'm not your enemy either. We are the players on the field that have been pit together because we're supposed to face off for someone else's entertainment until we choose to play together and let that be the entertainment without that play needing to be perverted. Because I don't know about you, but adult play has largely veered away from innocence.
Yes.
Unless we bring innocence back down to the inner sense that it is.
There you go. Yeah. And you know, I've noticed for myself that the more I engage in playful activity, the more everything reflects that, right? Not just that moment in time, and not just the things involved in that moment, but it, you know, it has a permeative effect through everything, you know, throughout time. Absolutely. As above, so below, right? There's another principle of correspondence. And
yeah.
To me,
sorry.
I was just going to say, to me, it seems like everything in this reality follows the exact same principles as music. which I think are pretty greatly reflected through Hermetic philosophy.
Which I'm sure you know more about than I do. And I look forward to hearing that perspective, not per se today, but I have heard that it's all the same 12 notes that we're all creating life with. And if we actually learn how to use those notes so that we can flow together better, then we can really make the change that we seek in this world and better understand how we flow with others too. So I think this is absolutely spectacular that this unexpected second meeting of such wealth and brilliance came to be, and that I do believe the ending human trafficking is about an inner job as well as the outer. Like, we need to see that history repeats itself until we choose to change the story and to actually take the suits off of men and women, which are the statuses that make them seem to be higher or lower than we are, because we're then seen in the realm of statuses compared to where we stand shoulder to shoulder commonly. And it's either the common lie, or we say, okay, just because previously you've had to swear an oath of silence in order to buy membership into the mystery schools and traditions and societies that would reveal these insights of the sacred to those willing to dig for them, we're making it more available now because we can't afford for the occult to remain hidden any longer, because it's already in plain view. It's just like Cam said, if you think you're looking at a plus sign that comes after the 2 and it's actually an equal, the 2 equals 2, and you think it's 2 plus 2 and you have an equals 4 after that, but it was already complete and you just didn't expect it to be an equal or a plus instead of an equal. It's just like, I didn't get that as the best example, but I was just trying to say, like, if you think it's a plus and it actually means equals,
right.
That's a big
Like,
problem.
the idea there is that if your grammar is out of place, you think this means that, then your observations of that thing are going to follow that confusion.
Legalese is a whole language that was created to deceive the common man or woman, because what's the maxim? I'm sure you know it better than I do, of he who does
He
not
who may
know.
be fooled, he who may be fooled, let him.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. That's literally a maxim of law. The law that covers 3 jurisdictions, not just one, which is why a common law argument alone doesn't stand, because you've got judges in the canons and contract law sections of that same court of LAW, land, air, and water. So instead, then you actually step into space and claim your right to be a woman or a man that stands on our claims and says any man or woman that wishes to take their suit off and stand opposite me, eye to eye on the page, eye that I can see, he or she can take the oath or can take the stand under oath and make a claim of a superior standing to me when I claim the right to be me. And if anyone does, so be it, then we can have a face off that way. But if no one does, then does it not stand that I am what I say I am?
Right. And if they refute that claim, they need to produce a contract of evidence of that.
Yes, exactly. And this is also the thing we're not going to get into today, because this is like totally off topic and I don't know what you guys had planned for today. I didn't plan this, but I'm grateful for it. But there's a big...
I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I just decided to jump in.
I'm so glad you did, Cam. It's such a pleasure to meet you, and Annette too, to be able to be here, and Lesego. I know you're listening, and he's got a lot of technological issues with Zoom, with coming in from Africa, but the difference that I wanted to just say is about between contracts and agreements, because agreements are flexible. We can adjust our agreements when they no longer fit the purpose, and that's common law. We can do that commonly because it doesn't need to be written and contracted. So the expansion of the agreement that was meant to liberate us and make life easier, which was why the government was created in the first place, suddenly contracts. And then you have to fit your substance into the form of the one whose jurisdiction you fall under when you conform to fit into their forms. So this is why we really need to understand how to actually make agreements and recognize that actually, as much as people say everything is a contract, if it is spoken before it is wrote, is it a contract or is it an agreement that is living compared to what lived? Because in law, the only active moment is now. Anything else is a legal fiction, which is why the lawyers and the justice system will always pull us into a not now moment. So then we're in a fiction already, and so then they can pull us off of our center. There is not I've had access to an uncommon source of information of a man no one knows of that has helped me come to an uncommon understanding of not the common law specifically, but of living in the private compared to the public, which is why I make such a stand about distinguishing between a standing and having status.
Right.
So the thing that we've been recently speaking about is the difference between with your trust, which is connected to the birth certificate. It's connected with the registration that takes place at birth when the ship ports and mom offloads the passenger, which is then converted into a crew member within the captainship of your country, for instance, right?
That is called a purser.
A what?
A purser. That's where we get person. Purser is the signatory officer of the ship who's responsible for, all the maintenance and cleaning and restocking and refueling and certification and docking of the ship. It's got all the liability and no authority, basically.
Exactly. That's what a crew member has. So a crew member is subject to all of the liabilities, limitations, obligations, rules, debts, and duties applied to their role, which is what the role of a person applies to us. It converts us into the equivalent of a crew member that is on a pirate ship that is not looking out for the crewmate, but is looking out for the ship and the captain and the passengers. And this is the thing that a man out of Australia, and I don't know whether either of you have come across him. I only saw the one video, and his name was Rohan, Rohan, and apparently he's been locked up without a hearing or opportunity for bail for over 12 months is what it read in the description of the video, where I learned about how to actually step off the pirate ship. And then he got locked up because the thing is if you are an expert in an ivory tower, no one knows how to be on the same level of, because you share the information without helping others get it to the level where they can actually use it to help you too. It's very dangerous. And he, in the video where it introduced me to him, he had said about, you got the crewmates at the bottom, you got the passengers, which actually have a Bill of Rights. So a citizen doesn't have the same rights that one who was able to move into being a passenger within the experience. So sovereign, I don't believe, is the highest. I don't believe that that's a status that is beneficial to take on. And maybe you would agree or disagree.
I'd probably agree with that.
Because if you claim to be sovereign, then you also are then taking on the requirements that come with what it means to be sovereign, which includes having your own army, having your own currency. There are a lot of requirements that come with actually being sovereign compared to being a woman. There's nothing in writing to say what I am. I am.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And it's apparent that you are, because I can look at you and see that you are there, right? But I can't look at you necessarily and see that you are sovereign, right? I would have to do business with you first.
Yes. See, this is the colors of law.
Right.
And that's the colors of right and plausible deniability, which is what so many of the people now and back in the day with the Nuremberg trials, what they were able to claim that they thought they were doing right, because plausible deniability or colors of law or colors of right mean that essentially you did it because you thought that it was the right thing to do. But when they said, like, well, what happened, and then you say, and then they question it and you give the details, you're going into the colors of it, which actually that taints what you originally said. So when you change your story to accommodate or taint the truth that you originally shared, it shows that you are not standing in your truth the way as when you say, I said right there.
Right. Yeah, and it seems that there's like a rule of three, especially with standing your ground, where like if you can't maintain your position 3 times in a row, they see that as a dishonorable way of behaving, I guess. And dishonor is usually what seems to get people in trouble, right? Is that you're not doing what you're saying, or you're not saying what you're doing, and full disclosure needs to be had. And so, if you're going to stand firm, you have to maintain that firm stance. Otherwise, if you falter, they take advantage.
So it's a very, very tricky experience, and I am learning as much as I can, and you seem to be a really great resource as well, Cam. So I'm grateful to be connected, and definitely would love to continue conversations. Friday, if you're able, and everyone who watches this replay, if you're cool, I'll share this too, because this was insightful. Friday, we're going to come together at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that's when we're going to have the second Mind Control Programming and Propaganda Summit experience about narcissism, not enoughness, and the Indian Residential Schools Act. So Annette was talking about the mom and baby homes in Ireland and mentioned in Boston. Lisego, I'm sure you've got stories from Africa as well to be able to contribute as to how humanity has been trafficked, continues to be, until we know who we are and whose we are, and that we don't need to fight one another, but we just need to figure out how to harmonize, which is what we're doing through this album. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and please do come out on Friday, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate being a part of it.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
Please do leave your email as well there, Cam, so that then I can add you into the list. So I send out the link for the recording. Obviously you got that. And yeah, definitely look forward to connecting and learning more.
Likewise. Thank you.
Sweet. Thanks. All right.
Thanks, Emil. I noticed your guitars at the back there, Cam.
Yeah.
Your guitarist and a drummer, are you?
I'm not a drummer. No, that's my buddy's kid. We jam on Mondays.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can send you some links to some music if you want to check it out. It's all instrumental right now, but I do write lyrics. I'm just not much of a singer or vocalist myself, so still waiting for the right person to come along and do that for me.
Cool. Where are you based?
I'm a singer.
Are you?
Yeah.
I play pretty heavy stuff though. I mean, I'll show it to you, but if you think it's something you can, or if you want to pick something that you think you could do something with, be my guest.
Cool. Do you have like a Facebook or an Instagram page or anything?
No, really my only social media is relegated to Telegram and Discord, and that's about it. I've got a Clapper account just so I can make some videos and get them out there, but I rarely use it for any sort of social media type activity. I've kind of tried to distance myself from that. I've got a family that I need to pay attention to and stuff, so it's hard being on social media and still paying people the attention they deserve and things like that. I just kind of have a moral dilemma with some of these companies and feeding them advertising money and things like that too. So
I know what you mean, because it's like I was talking to somebody the other day who's the guy I met on LinkedIn, and he was talking about promoting my music and stuff, and he's like, how many followers have you got on Facebook, how many followers have you got on Instagram, and these are important things, and I'm like, God, I don't, it's very hard.
If I ever get popular or anything like that, what I mean? It's like I just do it because I like it, and I hope other people that want to listen to it like it. I don't care how many they are in number. or where they live, you know.
I know, and it's like, it's not about that, is it? Like, it's just about doing something you love, and what we're
Yeah.
doing here, like doing something to help other people, you know, like, and
And
that's
for your
what
own
we're
personal
out for.
growth, I mean, I can't think of a better thing to do than engage in musical play, because, you know, it initiates all parts of the brain and mind and spirit all at the same time. Everything's engaged. And,
Yeah,
you know,
well
once
said.
you go down there with that full engagement, you can really start to see what you're capable of, and it'll open your perception outside of music to new things that you never realized, you know, were the case.
Yeah,
And so, you know, it's like, for me, it's just more a tool for personal growth than it is a medium for, say, reaching people or even making money or anything like that.
yeah.
I've never made a dime other than live shows playing music. And I don't play live shows anymore because that's turned into a racket in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, you know, at this point, we just have taken it upon ourselves to write and record on our own and release it on our own. And those who want to hear it, you're welcome to. It's free. Those who don't,
Brilliant.
whatever.
Yeah. I'm gonna take down your email anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Where did you say you were from?
I'm in Utah.
You're in Utah. Amazing. All right. Well, I am so glad that we were all able to connect here today. And yeah, I'll add you to the list so you will get an email with any updates. And definitely, if you've got any questions or comments, please jump into other opportunities as well. I always post them onto Meetup. So the Peaceful Inner Warriors United Meetup group is where all of the events that I post get posted, or the events that I host get posted. And yeah, we'll get the bullying one scheduled for tomorrow. So I know it's last minute, but ultimately it's a conversation that people are either going to jump into or listen back to, hopefully, and we can really identify the systemic bullying problem that we're experiencing, and then how to actually find the pathways out of it, because it's like the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole, I was thinking the rat race, actually. It's like the have you guys, I call it fat rat syndrome, which I self-proclaimed or self-diagnosed myself to have when I was living in England. And I was in a relationship. I was a fully supported housewife, wasn't married, but like, you know, I had all the responsibilities of supporting my ex and, like, you know, building his business and looking after the house, and I was trying to do my thing on the side, but it was just the hobby and, you know, extra spending cash, and, you know, that kind of dynamic when there's 18 years between you. So like, that was early on in my 20s. And when one day I was driving through the English countryside and lived beside Malvern Hills. So if you're familiar with the landscape, absolutely spectacular. It's where the Queen literally gets her water for all of the kingdoms. Like, she would transport it from Malvern Hills. So anyway, I'm driving and I'm listening to Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics audio program. And I'm listening to the experience that they shared about the two rats that were placed into this maze. One was fed and one was starved beforehand. And so they both were put to the start of the same maze. And then the fed rat sauntered along and hit roadblocks and turned around, and it just moseyed and sauntered and then got to the cheese and it ate it and it was content, right? Well, the starved rat was in a frenzy to get through this race. And so it went a lot faster and got there faster and ate it frantically. Anyway, so then a while later, both rats are now starved. And then they put these same rats into this maze. And what ends up happening is the fed rat from the first race went straight to the cheese. It didn't make any mistakes. The other one did the same and scurried, but made mistakes and turned around and got there. But the point is that the fed rat was sauntering along memorizing things because its nervous system was calm enough to actually be able to create and take in its environment, so it could remember when it had to go back and do it again. And so I say I am self-diagnosed as having had fat rat syndrome because for a long time I sauntered around and I looked around and I thought I wasn't good enough because I looked what everyone else was doing and I looked at the statuses and I compared myself to other people who seemed to know the truth and seemed to have such confidence and conviction in their BS. And then I found out that the reason that I had doubted myself for so long was because I was more skeptical. And when things didn't feel right, I couldn't just accept it. And I didn't understand how others could and still remain so convicted by the BS of someone else. But what I find, and why I say this now, is because I feel like many of us have either been the frenzied, starved rat or the fed, calm, sauntering rat, and we're both at the second race right now. Like we're at the start of the maze where it's like whatever we've been doing up until now, this is a reset, and it's not going to be the one planned for us. It's the one that we're going to create together. So I'm grateful to be on the field with each of you.
Likewise, and on that point, given the law of polarity, right? One thing I think people should keep in mind, especially those that have a bleaker out view of what's happening, is that the opposite of a problem is an opportunity. That is to say that all problems are opportunities unrealized. And according to the law of rhythm, the pendulum swings equally in both directions. So the potential for your problem is the same potential yield for your solution or your opportunity. It's all a matter of perspective, right? Like how do you look at what you see as a problem? Because the perspective is what either dictates that it's a problem or an opportunity.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
May I add?
We heard you. Let's go.
Hi, guys. I've been listening and I had a whale of a time. Thank you so much. I'd like to share a thought with what you just said about problem and opportunity. There is a language in the world where they use the same word for opportunity and crisis. And that happens to be the language of a nation that contains a lot of wisdom.
Excellent. Well, thanks for validating that. I appreciate it.
And Cam, what can I just ask before we go? Remember you were talking about the grammar. What do you call that grammar thing you were saying?
The trivium?
Yeah, I think you were saying, what is it, sorry?
So the trivium, it's basically an order of operations of to follow to go from a place of unknowing to a place of wisdom, right? Okay. And it's basically a threefold order of operations, which starts with grammar, logic is in the middle, and then it ends with rhetoric, right? So grammar is the diction or the words or the terms in which you understand the world. Your logic is the sense you make of the world based on that grammar, and the rhetoric is the things you espouse based on your experiences of that logic. Right? Okay. So that's how we inform ourselves and others of what we believe to be what is, right?
Okay. Cool. Learned loads again.
Right?
I always learn loads when I come on these Zooms with you, Laura.
Good. So glad to hear that. Lesego, you were going to say, sorry?
No, I was just adding on to what Annette said about how enriching the session has been. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Yay! Well, I'm so grateful that each of you showed up, and I'm going to get this posted. So please do share it with a few of your friends that may also wish to participate and contribute conscious music to this project. And remember that part of the requirement is the workshop or a video about some kind of trade secret or tip that is going to save an aspiring artist from the hard lessons that you learned in getting it. So even editing, like that's something I do all the time because of how much content I put out in this world. It's a workshop in and of itself that I could do. For instance, I'm not going to at this point, but it's possible that that could be something that I shared and have before, but it's just an example of how much useless information that we have access to, or things that we do second nature because we've done it so many times now that we just do it. Somebody might really benefit from your unconscious competence and being able to do that without having to think about it now compared to when you first started with it. So please get in those workshop submissions so that we can really start the mentoring component of this experience at an even deeper level, and we can really welcome in the teens, because they're going to be the focus of the next project, my hope is, because they need an outlet. Because if our teens go down, they pull the parents down, and the parents don't have anybody right now, because the parents are the ones in between, the ones that are aging and relying on them, and the children that are looking up to them. And if we don't empower the kids, they're a weight compared to what they truly are, which is the one that can actually lift us all. So you are who we are getting ready for. If you are younger, or even if you are just youthful in spirit, you are invited now and then too. And in the meantime, appreciate each of you. So toodaloo.
Thank you.
Awesome, Lesego.
Very, very, very nice. Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It was it worked out well, because you and Annette both showed up an hour after the original meeting was. So we just did a second meeting, and you were worth it. So I'm glad you showed up.
Yeah, thank you so much for accommodating us.
Yeah.
And just a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time shift in North America where EST changes to an hour earlier?
Evidently, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we just had our shift, so we sprung forward on Sunday.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's why I missed the real meeting time.
yeah, so I didn't realize that I didn't realize the rest of the world didn't jump at the same time as what we did. So I'll just make sure that I make a note if there is a time change, and just keep that in mind for in your country, that it's different.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, have a good one, Lesego. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks. You too, Laura. Cheers.
Thanks. Ciao for now.